All right.
Uh,
Okay, we're recording just in case the live stream doesn't
yep,
work.
24 seconds. All right, so we're
Okay.
gonna go with this in 17. It takes about 2 seconds to stream, so I usually push it a little early. We got lots of volume. Got lots of volume. We're good.
So,
All right, here we go. Hello, hello, hello. Good
Hello,
evening, and
beautiful
let's
people.
start with the quick intro. It's really quick.
Oh,
It's like 3 seconds or something.
are y'all jamming?
There we go. And I will be redoing the intro with the new piece of AI software I've been playing around with. Just so
Awesome.
you know, there's a new piece of software that does audio and video, so you can have people talking, which is kind of cool.
I love it.
Playing around with. But yeah, AI is definitely interesting. I'm doing a show on Monday on it if you're curious. But welcome to Lethal Sales. I'm going to be filling in and doing double task with Rhonda today because Larry is at by appointment only in I think in New Jersey, so he was not able to be on live.
yep.
But we were talking about produce or die today. And I think that's the apt post I saw this morning was really interesting. And I don't know if you saw Brian Benstock's post, but he was talking about the lack of good leaders in every area of the world today. And he said, "Yeah, when I was a kid, my football coach, worked me till I puked, and I actually appreciated that because it
Oh,
made me a better football player." And he says, "My first boss, the Singer family, I guess, who owns Paragon, they just kept raising the bar. Like I don't care what you did last month. Like well, you got to get, you got to get here, and I don't care, get it done." And it was a really good post for me because I think in a lot of cases, and I'm not saying this is in every case, and I'm loving to get everyone's opinion on this because it's about production. Sometimes we treat different generations with kid gloves today, safe spaces and trophies and all this stuff. And I think a lot of it is actually doing them a disservice because realistically, it's about, getting better and beating yourself yesterday or the people you're competing with, but also just setting that bar high. And I think the leaders out there need to be setting that bar high. And if they're not doing that, you're not helping anybody. Like accepting that 6 car a month person or the person in service who doesn't sell anything is probably not the right way to go. But since we have people in the room that are probably my age or older, I mean, what was your opinion as a kid? Were people giving you the participation trophy? Were people telling you, hey, just keep me in at the bottom?
yeah. Let me think about that for a minute. No, I didn't get any participation trophies.
No, no, I didn't get any participation trophies either. So
Neither did I. All I got was criticism, actually.
exactly. And if you got a problem and you want to cry about it, I'll give you something to
To
cry
cry
about.
That's
about.
right.
Yeah, right.
Right? Right?
Right.
Don't make me turn this car around. I
Hmm.
mean, it's all it is. I can reach back there and grab you when I'm driving. I mean, it's the class. No, I grew up with two older brothers. It was survival of the fittest,
Yeah.
and it says, and we did like, and I got to be careful because I go off on a tangent and my filter will run amok. And you know,
Get that sword jar ready.
Okay.
people can express themselves, and that's wonderful. But what I visibly see in people that just write on their body, they just take like it's like they took a pen. Now, tattooing, I will say that from my I don't know if it's the Jewish, but it's you don't tattoo your body. You're not going to get buried in a Jewish cemetery if you've been tattooed. But it just, I don't know what happened because people, it's more acceptable to have your whole sleeve or your arm or your leg tattooed today, or it's common where there's a nose ring. And I'm like, Why do I have to look at that? I'm looking right at your nose ring. Why do I have to look at that? And I'm sure your mother and father don't appreciate it, and I don't know what kind of employment you can get. So we've clearly 20 years. I want to go. I want to say I'm 64, so I can be that cantankerous old man, but boy, have we went to the left hard.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I laugh about there's a bunch of different YouTube channels that I watch just more for entertainment purposes. And one of them happens to be a company out of Australia, and they have a show where they feature these idiots behaving stupidly at scale. And you get these people, to your point, okay, I tattooed my face and I got more metal in my face than a guy in Leavenworth,
yeah,
but I can't get a job. I don't
I
know
don't
why
understand
nobody
it.
wants
Yeah.
to
yeah,
hire me.
nobody
I
wants
don't
to hire me
understand.
with that. Hey,
Okay, here's a
They're
different take.
prejudiced against me.
let's hear
Here's a
what Tony
different
has
take.
to
Here's a
say.
different take on that. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, I can hear you,
All
Tony.
right. So I've discovered some content online. Let's see.
Yep.
There's the boomers, then it's the Gen X, Gen Z, then right?
Yep. Gen
Boomers,
Z and then
X, and
Alpha.
Z.
Yep.
Okay. So the Gen X's, um, of which I'm like right at the beginning, end of the boomers, right at the Gen X's, they're starting to come to the realization that they screwed them up, and starting to realize that the Gen Zs are the ones that got the participation trophies. And it's not because of who they were, it's because of who their parents were and what their parents decided. Everybody gets a ribbon, everybody's a winner, even the losers are winners. And so the Gen Zs got convinced at a very early age that they're all winners. And now we got to, and their parents are coming to the conclusion and admitting we're the ones that screwed them up. How do we unscrew them?
It's
Yeah.
the millennials have the same problem. And I know my daughter was playing, she was a pretty good swimmer and she was on a lot of swim teams. So one season, because my husband insisted, she did softball and she was horrible at it. In fact, she lost the whole season for them. Last game, last at bat, and she screwed up. And they turned around and they gave her a participation trophy. And she said to them, "Are you kidding me?"
I don't
Yeah.
deserve this.
She said,
So
"I'm never playing this game again, and I'm not going to the banquet to get my participation trophy."
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
This kind of reminds me of like caterpillars and butterflies and eggs and with birds, etc. Where when they start to hatch, don't assist in hatching and removing the shell for them because they're doomed to die.
right.
Same thing with the butterfly. It's all about the struggle, and I just don't. So we have really interesting dynamics. We got three kids, four grandkids, and their spouses. They all live within 9.5 minutes of us. Now, I'm the big bad papa that everybody is scared of. They get away with bloody murder with their moms, etc. I mean, crying, and that's not fair. Trying to make things fair. Life isn't fair. They didn't slap they didn't slap you on the butt and say life's going to be fair and equal. Excuse me. It's not that way at all. So they'll ask and ask and ask and ask and ask, and they'll be warned with consequences that most of the time never materialize whatsoever.
Mhm.
But if they're around me and that's going on, they're not near like that, but they still yet go too far. But when I look over at them or when I engage verbally with them, they pretty much stop on the cue. I
Mhm.
don't have to, no corporal punishment or anything like that. It's not about that at all. It's that when Papa speaks, it's like you listen. You've gone too far. We're not going to play that game around here. When they're with me, oh, they're little darlings.
Yeah.
But a separate, listen, I get it. I understand a lot of that. But you call them helicopter hovers, whatever you want to. You can't protect them and think that you're doing them any kind of service. It's exactly the opposite. It is a disservice. You're setting them up to not have the right equipment to be able to deal with life on life's terms because you know what? It's brutal. It's not fair. and it's not equal. And if you want something, it's highly competitive. You're going to have to go out there and get it, and you're going to have to fall and fall and fail and fail and fail. And the more you fail, the closer you get to succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
When
famous, I
my
think it's a
kids were
Clint Eastwood
when
quote.
my
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, when my triplets were growing up, they're now
Yep.
18. And
Yep.
I'm a very conservative person. They grew up in a Christian home, homeschooled, and the last thing they would say to me or their mother, it's not fair, because our next response is, "Oh, you want fair? Okay, let's talk about fair. Right after you go out and mow the lawn, we'll talk about fair. Right after you go do your laundry, we'll talk about fair." And so they stopped saying it's not fair in our house. And I've got some great kids, but they still have their challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of three. My parents were baby boomers. I'm a Gen X. It was basically like that's the rules. You don't like it, like
You're a
there's
Gen
the
X,
door, man.
Ian?
Good luck with that one.
Ian, you're not a Gen X.
I am. I'm a Gen Xer, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I look at my brother's kids. My brothers are both Gen Xers. Their kids, I guess, are millennials. Probably older millennials now, I guess, or mid. But when I look at it, and I look at sort of the kids out there that I see, but also the kids as I visited dealerships of various ages, a lot of it is, what limits are you allowing? Like what's the where is that line? Where are you drawing that line? And what really hit me when I looked at that Clint Eastwood quote, which is no one owes you a goddamn thing. Go out and get it done, or go out and get it, whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, oh, I can do videos on TikTok and I know how to use a camera on a phone, so I deserve millions of dollars.
Of
And the
course you
reality
do.
is that's ridiculous. It's at the end of the day, and fairness was a great example there. One of the first lessons I think my dad ever taught me was, yeah, life ain't fair. Get over it. Like, you're gonna have to do things you don't want to do, and you should be happy you have something to do, because there are places in the world where there's nothing to do and you can't do anything about it. So, at the end of the day, you got to, get up and get on with it. But more importantly, I think the job of those leaders, good and bad out there, and I think there's a lot of bad, but there's also a lot of good, is the people that really you respect are people that push you to get it done,
Mhm.
right? People that say, hey, they might not be the nicest people in the world sometimes, but they're saying, hey, you want to get to that 20 cars a month, you want to make this much a month, you want to,
Mhm.
you want to talk to this many customers, you want to sell this many of anything. This is what you got to do to get it
Yeah.
done. And
I
I
got
think
to
that's really what it's about.
I got to tell you, Brian Benstock reminds me when I was in the service back in the 70s, my drill sergeant. I hated him and revered him. And I wanted to perform for him. I wanted to excel for him. And he encouraged me and motivated me and mentored me in a way I really didn't like, but I quickly learned to love. And I rose to the occasion and accomplished things I never thought I could accomplish. He believed in me before I could believe in myself. That's what Brian Benstock reminds me of.
And and to capitalize on that, Ian, what you were saying, and then now Russell. I had a junior high gym teacher, Ray Fragio, and he was a drill sergeant, short hair, and he would always yell at everybody's last name, and so Ray Fragio was our first entry into, you had a guy, he's going to tell you what to do, but you're going to appreciate it. So Russell mentioned the 70s. When I go into a dealership and I see either you don't, it's rare that you see a hands-on owner, but that's okay. But when you have a general manager and the general manager is like everybody's papa bear and or everybody's mama bear, they are usually the most important person in that dealership because they inspire everybody. They're inspiring the young lot kids doing things right. They have the ability to take and build the culture. And today, those guys are valuable a good general manager that knows how to operate and kiss the babies and desk deals on Saturday, but know how to mentor these young men and women or older men and women. That's what I see is the win. In a family or a small local operation, the general manager can set the tone as long as the owner is involved, and that's where the mentorship should be. When you see an F&I manager in there for 20 years and he said, "Well, I started on the floor," or a salesperson behind the desk, "I started on the floor," or a lot kid that was jockeying cars all over the place, now he's in a suit and tie and he's selling cars. That's that's the boots and the way that today I see the general manager and the owner need to embrace and be everybody's coach. And coach, you need to do more. And so leadership, it's a perfect time. Tucker, leadership is time for the floor, the general managers and the owners. And it's now because we can do videos. We can do promotions. So now we use their talents that some of the people don't have the skills of doing it. And collaboration and getting their messages out is where it's definitely you see little spots of victories happening and you celebrate that because they are winning, because they're all working together, growing a new culture. I mean, I don't know anything about the Roman Auto Group, but boy, they do a great job. I know a little bit about J.R. Toothman. His guys, they're videoing and they're showing they're doing a great job. So that's where the leadership should be kind of mentoring these young men and women that have those skills. Do you have a Facebook account? Do you have a, of course they do. Okay, so let's set up an Instagram account for you and see if we can get you off of 7 or 8 cars and get you up to maybe 12 or 14, get you a few more leads. And those are where the coaching is neat. Those used to be what we used to do. I mean, we used to coach these young men and women. And I remember back in the 90s, our top gun, we bought him a suit. We had a tailor would come in with a $100 suit, and we and who didn't look good in a suit, and now they feel good about themselves and they made it. And those young men and women, they make it into management, and we do have a whole lot of new faces in the business. And I look to the women and I look to minority, and we need to add them more on the showroom floor because it just can't be a sea of middle-aged guys all
Yeah.
huddling around. You need to have all mixtures of people because not everybody wants to buy from that sales guy. They want to
Yeah.
buy from somebody like themselves, and that's what they're missing right now. They need to promote their people, their salespeople. That's the victory today. So,
Well, then the other thing that you got to look at, and if you're not familiar with the book, definitely check it out. Lady is called Angela Duckworth. It's a book. It's called Grit. So what she did was she went out. She was asked by I think West Point. They couldn't figure out why they put everyone through this gauntlet to be a West Point student, and 30% of them failed. They couldn't understand that because they had the same criteria. They had to be certain physical fitness, certain medical acuity, certain this. So they were trying to figure out why that was. So she went out and studied people from every walk of life and every profession and tried to determine, and she actually got results, but she also tried to determine, what kind of questionnaire, what kind of questions to figure that out. But the thing that was really interesting about grit was if you're gritty at 18 or at 16, when you're at 55 or 60, you'll be more gritty than you were then. If
yeah,
you are lacking in that component, which is grittiness or ability to
to
adapt, to really move
persevere,
forward,
to
you're probably
rebound.
not going to be that gritty.
Yeah, okay.
So what you want to do from a team perspective, and I love your point there because obviously you want to build a diverse, high performance team. It could be gender specific, might not be. It could be a mix. But what you want to do, and she found out this in the book, that if you mix a very gritty older person with a gritty younger person, both people get better.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. They mentor.
it's really interesting because she also went and did things like talk to life insurance salesmen and figured out, why was this person better than the other person? And it had to do with the fact that they did it a certain way, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were just gritty to start with. So they
Okay.
came equipped with the right tools. And it wasn't a specific education, wasn't a
Right. It
specific
was just
background,
it
had
was
nothing to do with it.
a desire to keep going.
Yeah, and I think that's something I probably learned in school from sports and coaches and teachers and my parents. But I think today it's harder because you're not exposed to those kind of experiences. And I think someone shared a generational gap. So you got Generation Z, Millennials, Gen X, Boomers, and then post-war and the greatest generation, World War II. So if you're under 60 or Gen X, basically, or 45 to 60, if you're under 44, you're older millennial, and then Gen Z is 13 to 28. And then
I
Generation Alpha is the latest, so they'll be the next one to come.
right.
But if you're managing people and you're looking for performance, which we know everyone's looking for, you got to remember about 40% of the people you're dealing with are millennials or younger. I mean, that's the math today.
Yeah, the
So
truth
if
is
you're
most of our us are older than half the people on the planet.
yeah, so if you're a Gen Xer like
Wow,
myself,
that's
or if you're a
encouraging.
baby
Yeah.
boomer, you got to talk differently to these folks. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't teach them the same lessons, but you got to remember that their attention span and what they focus on may be different. And in some cases, it isn't their fault. It's just their parents were, I don't know, had ADD or whatever and weren't focusing on it. But you can still teach them the same way. I always use the example. I worked with a General Motors store years ago, and they had a salesman there who was 84, and he was working 3 days a week because he had to get out of the house or his wife didn't like it. And I trained him on, I think, phone ops or something, taking phone ups. I trained the whole used car team at this store. And the next day, he was doing it at scale. So what that told me is he was listening, but more importantly, open to new ideas at that age. And you're going to find that cross generations. It's just that when you're hiring those folks for your store or training them, you really got to figure out, what you're dealing with. Like, what's the silly putty you're dealing with, and how can you mold it into what you want? And you're going to have a percentage that just aren't gritty enough to get it done. I mean, that's why that book is so useful. There's a great questionnaire in there that you can give to people, and it'll tell you how gritty they are. And if they're not gritty at all, I don't know. Make your own call there.
You
What do
have
you think,
guys,
what do you think, Tony? Or go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, bringing it back to then this is awesome. Bringing it back to the car dealership. I've always been a show me type of guy. When I had show and tell, I was showed everything.
Yeah.
But I always hear that there's two dealerships whenever I hear a general manager saying how good they are, or a principal or owner saying how good they are. There's a dealership that they talk about, and the dealership that actually runs. So there's two different kinds of dynamics here.
Yeah.
And what I see is a lot of talk, but talk is cheap. Okay. Now, what are you learning in these kind of rooms or seminars or NADA or what? You go and you take notes like a madman, and it sits there, and it's the same old story. And there's some tools out there. Most talk about it, but they know maybe inside their head, or they have it written down on a bev nap, their mission, vision, values. But
Yep.
does your staff know on the top of their head your mission, vision, values? That's where you get players that run through a brick wall for their coach. That's where you heard that term, is everybody's. And I was blessed to follow the New England Patriots. Why did Tom Brady win a Super Bowl in his 20s, 30s, and 40s? He progressively was working with guys who were older than him, and then guys that were younger than him. He went through that career, but he was still a champion. And what was the rule? What was the thing that Bill Belichick used to say?
What,
Try
Mike?
to beat the Packers. See if you can beat the Packers.
Yeah,
Win at all
right.
costs.
No, do your job. That's the one thing he drilled into us. And regionally, they had a whole bunch of commercials with "do your job."
Yeah.
But if that's not kind of ingrained or a mission, vision, values where somebody can read it, but is indoctrinated on that kind of concept, you're going to continue to get, okay, we're onboarding and they're outboarding.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
So Tony, I hear you
I would
gotta
have to say, yeah, I got
go
to
ahead, Tony.
jump here in a couple minutes,
Yeah.
but
So go ahead.
what I was going to say is, I think one of the areas that we could do better was a conversation from this morning's clubhouse, where Brad was saying, I've got three guys that were 20 car guys for those of you that were in there, and they were a couple challenges, personality challenges. They fought the system, but they were 20 car guys, and they either blew themselves out or got blown out. And then he's got three people that he's tried to bring up to speed over the last whatever period of time. And his question was, should I bring back the top performers, the guys that are high maintenance, a challenge, or should I get these new guys up to speed and see if I can make them work? And I think the issue is Brad. I'm not saying Brad in a bad way, but he's got a culture that the three guys that blew out fit very well. And the three guys that are there, he's trying to get them into the culture. And so I think a lot of times we're not hiring the right people for our culture. We're hoping we can twist them and turn them and train them and bring them around to our culture, but we're not able to do that because they don't have the right temperament. As Mike was saying, the vision, the mission, those things are great to know, but until you take ownership of them, where they're actually your vision, right? Now, it may have been given to you by the dealer principal, but there has to come a point where you take ownership and you identify with that. And so for a dealership like his, those three guys, I would bring them back in a heartbeat instead of trying to push that rope on the 5-car Freds. They're either going to get it or they're not going to get it. But I think the problem is we hire the wrong people for our culture.
Well, how many people are on the sales team? Just out of curiosity, Tony.
He has 40 some, I think he said.
Yeah. I mean, so you're always going to have the top guys and the middle guys, and then you're going to have the bottom. That the bottom aren't going to make it no matter what you do.
Yeah, the bottom doesn't have to be. The bottom does not have to be the bottom. They don't have to be the bottom, right?
No, but generally you're pushing the middle anyway. Like if you push the middle, the top get better. Generally, they sell more because that's where they're at. The middle will get better. The bottom generally is not going to have that much of an upside. But the thing that's interesting that you brought that up is I had the opportunity to do some training, and if anyone's interested, they send me an email. I'm happy to provide a coaching tool for you. The gentleman I happened to get coaching from coached 4 Olympic teams. So he's in his 80s, but he was talking about coaching. He was coaching synchronized swimming team. And the women that were on this team that he was coaching were complaining that they had to do all this hard work. It was difficult. And he goes, well, how many people do you know have a gold medal on their mantle?
Yeah.
They said, well, not very many. Well, then you'd appreciate that it's gonna take more to get there. Mm-hmm. And he developed a really good coaching tool that I'm happy to provide. You can definitely check it out. But the thing that I liked about it wasn't like you have these quarterly review tools where they like put all the stuff on a spreadsheet or whatever this is. This is more like, okay, here are the things you got to do. Let's prioritize it. And it's a very good tool, but it's only good if you execute on it. So it's only good if you're having those meetings with those staff, no matter what their level. But I agree with you that if the person just doesn't fit the culture, like if they're just not going to work, then you're probably best to just not take them on in the first place. I mean, there's a famous entrepreneur in the Canadian market named Jimmy Passon. You can look him up. He's a multi-billionaire. But he was famous years ago for basically firing the last guy every month. He would just fire the guy. He said, this is just not for you. You can't sell any cars. You should just move on. And people gave him a lot of grief, but he said, hey, I'm just doing them a favor. Like they're not going to make it.
That's what sports teams do. Sports teams do it. Sports teams do it all season.
Oh yeah, Like
Also.
he's 94 or something. But yeah, I mean, he
Mhm.
started out selling cars in college part-time. But this tool is interesting because it was about you're going to move the middle and maybe some of the bottom. I don't know, but the middle is where you got to focus. The top guys,
Yeah.
they're going to rise anyway. It does like
But
if someone's selling
the
30,
bottom cannot be the same guys. The bottom cannot. Oh, you can't have a three-year salesperson on the bottom every month.
No.
They're either going to move up to the middle and stay there and be headed toward the top, or we need to move on. Because I don't need a bunch of 5 and 8 car salespeople. I don't need 5 and 8 car salespeople.
I think we had 30 salespeople at the store I worked at retail, and there was always like 3 to 5 guys, and they were always at the top. They were chasing each other. The people in the middle would do that 12 to 15, and the guys at the bottom, gals at the bottom, they just wouldn't make it. So, you know, you can beat Jimmy up for what he did, but he was probably doing him a favor. If you're selling 1 or 3, it's probably not the job for you, right? So,
but then I think, Ian, I think you do need to look. You do need to look in the mirror and say, have they failed you or have you failed them before you move on?
100%. Yeah, we got a comment from John Frazier, and he says, hiring is the first key to success. We hire our problems. We also tolerate too much. Hire slow, fire fast. Problem with firing is managers don't want to admit that they made a bad hiring decision. And I would agree with that. And then we had Chris Curry said 20 toxic car guys are actually costing the store far more sales. So I would say it would depend on how you define that. I mean, there are people that are great high performance car people that are fine. Maybe you're judging them too harshly, but they're also ones that are damaging your store.
Well,
and I always
and I go back to culture on that comment. It goes back to your culture. If you believe that 20 car people are toxic, then your culture sees them that way.
Yep.
Right, because it doesn't fit with your overall team. And so I think it really goes back to your culture. Brad can handle those people. The average dealer in Fairness Doctrine USA is not going to be able to handle those guys. But and I got to go.
So
night, Tony.
I'll talk to you later, Tony.
Yep.
I got a question for you, everybody. Is the branding that I talked about, the mission, vision, values, and that core of any company, is it different than the culture or is it the same? I think there's two different animals.
Yeah, it's very different. I think the branding is an item and the culture is people.
Yeah, it's also only good if you use it. So you can have those words on the wall. Mm-hmm. And I've seen many Ford stores with this. They got sayings Ford or whatever, right? You can have that in like even in the sports change room, you can have these big, statements. But if you don't actually follow those statements and you don't actually hold people to task, then why do it? So at the end of the day, you also have to have a strong enough management team to say, listen, this is what we do here. This is why we do it here. And this is how we're going to train you how to do it. It's not just we put it up on the wall because we think it's great.
So that's the definition of the culture. Yeah. That what you just said is it's different than the conversation of, hey, what's our mission? How do we help advance our community? Those type of questions define your values, mission, vision, values. But what you're saying is this is the way we do it. Now conform into it, or what's the Giants the coach that won the 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots? The New York Giants. Anyway, he's what is it?
Bill, the tuna.
No. The guy after him. He used to be for Jacksonville.
Okay.
What you know how I'm talking about?
Coughlin.
Yeah.
Coughlin.
Yeah.
It was Coughlin.
He used to say, "Be here 15 minutes early for my meetings," and they hated him. But they won the Super Bowl when they started to conform to him. Yeah, he's a stickler for that, but he's going to fine you if you're not there 15 minutes early for his meetings. And they were going, why am I being fined?
Well,
we hate this guy. But they conformed and they won 2 Super Bowls.
But here's the thing. We have mission, vision, value, is something on the wall. But then you have processes. And we were talking about those 20 car guys. If you got 3 car guys and they're bucking the F&I process every time they got deals, they do need to go or they need to conform. You just don't blow them out, but they also have to realize now the 3 to 4 in the slower guys, I mean, their paperwork's usually cleaner, it's usually better, but you accommodate, but you just can't let the floor like Tony, had a jump, but those 320 car guys come back in and they put out the red carpet. And then what happens? Then animosity happens with management,
Hmm.
and the sales desk has no control over these guys. The F&I has no control over these guys. And these guys would say, "Hey, I'll just go to the owner because he called me back. I don't need to listen to you." That's the worst thing in the world, I would
Well,
think.
the flip side of it is the conversation was these guys got immediate positions elsewhere, right?
Yeah, they were
And they
okay.
came back to him going, "Can we have our old job back because the grass isn't greener on the other side?"
Well, that's always a good, yeah. So be
And
happy
they
they know.
go, "Before you came back, or before you stepped foot in this place as an employee, this is how things are going to change. And you
Correct.
conform to that or you're gone.
That's
First
the
strike."
that's
And I think that's the real answer for performance. It's about consistency. So whether you're a consistent high performer and you work a process, or whether you're a performer that needs to work a process, whether you're selling 20 or 5, part of it is that process being consistent. And that's also about customer experience. It's
Yep.
about follow up and
Hey,
follow
you
through.
you want to
It's
bang
about
out your
training those
20.
people every day. It's all the same stuff, right?
We used to say that all the time. If you're
Yeah.
busy and you got 3 or 4 deep and you need me to jump in and grab one of your customers, great, let's do it. Get the stuff into the system. I'll bring your customer in, but that's a management cooperation. Sometimes when I always look for is how, if they're cooperate with the desk, wonderful. If they're cooperate with F&I, well then you cater to them because they bring talent to the showroom and then maybe they'll help mentor some of the ones on the bottom. But sometimes the ones on the bottom lately, they just need to go. They need to learn that this is not a job for them, and to hang around in an environment that they're not happy with. They need to leave, and dealers need to get them out of there because then they're stuck with a customer, and they got like a sad sack not wanting to be there, and then they get a poor experience.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say the same on the service drive. I mean, if you've got
Oh,
service
oh,
writers, if you got service writers who are just going through the motions and they're not doing the job,
it's
I
scary.
think
Yeah.
that's another thing. I mean, you're going to have service writers that do real well and ones that don't.
Oh,
So
yeah.
at the end of the day, really, it's about, in my opinion, and when I first started retail, I mean, we did training twice a day, every day, 7 days a week. We got very good at what we did because it wasn't optional. Like you
Well,
came in, you did training.
Ian, where that was in Canada?
Yeah, that was in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was a Honda store. So we did
It's
training sessions twice a day, every day,
you know
7 days a week.
that's interesting to say that
Yeah,
because the
it is.
culture in the United States they never drew, Honda never drove that kind of training. What Honda kind of was is we've got really nice cars that people want to buy. Just please be nice to the customers and don't screw up our process as opposed to that. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. So I mean,
But it's the same as sports. If you were on a football team and your coach said, "Yeah, just roll in. We're having a game on Saturday. Try and show up on time, and we'll get you on the field.
yeah.
And we're playing this team. They're the best, but don't worry. Like we'll make it happen." Like that's
Yeah,
not going to work.
that's a record of 0-18.
Yeah, right. But okay, so when you're talking about produce or die, we're talking about expectations. And I
Yeah,
think that those need to be defined at the
yeah,
get-go. And if they can't meet the expectations, it's not like you got to go. It's like let's help you one step at a time, one car at a time, get
yeah.
to where you've
You
reached our
need to be.
minimum
But
expectation.
Rhonda, what they're looking for is the self-starter. That person says, "I need help. Please teach me how to do better." And
Right.
when you don't get that, and they just find the person sitting at the desk going, "Uh, Give
Yeah.
me I got high score on whatever they're
No, no,
playing.
you're right, Mike. But you know what? Yeah, this is our expectation. You're not meeting it. We are now going to work with you to get to step two,
Yeah.
and
So
that's
let's
what
talk
needs to
about that then,
happen.
Ron. Let's talk about that. So the average car salespeople, I think the stats are still true today. 5 to 8 cars, 10 used to be the average a month.
Five to
Obviously,
eight, is that what you
5 to 8
said?
used to be the average. That may be the same. I don't know. I haven't tested it recently. But when you look at a commission-based sales job, and most car sales jobs are still commission-based, you gotta be able to generate enough money to eat. Much like when you sold life insurance back in the day, which I think is still true today. Life insurance has about a 96% attrition because it's hard. It's hard to talk about death, and people, are hard to sell it to it. But when you're looking at that from a point of view of you want to go from 5 to 8 to say 15 to 20, let's just say that's your goal for this year or this month or this quarter. Part of it is setting a reasonable goal for that person. But to
Hmm.
your point, part of it is also saying, okay, what did you do last month to get to that 5 to 8? And how are you going to get to that 12 to 15? And what's it going to take in terms of effort to get there? And I'll use the example of myself because when I started selling cars, I'd sold other things, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just figured if I was there like the furniture for 7 days a week, I'd eventually figure it out and I'd sell things because I was there to learn. Like I want to sell cars. I'll be here all the time. I don't care if I'm on shift. I'll be here all the time. I'll learn from the people who know how to do it. Listen to them, do as asked. But most people they come in, it's like, okay, I can't sell that. So if you can't go from that, say 5 to 8 to 15, set a reasonable target. And I always used to laugh at this because we had these meetings when I sold cars for the first time, and they'd set targets every month on a sticker board. They go, okay, you did 8 last month. This month you're going to do 15. And I was like, okay, but great, but how am I going to get to 15? Like, what's the plan, coach? So to your point, yeah, part of it is, okay, you talked to 100 people last month, you sold 8. Obviously, you're doing something wrong. Every time you don't sell something, managers involved or not, you got to have a deconstruction of that and say, okay, where did you screw up? What I always did when I sold cars is when I missed a deal, because there was always a time during that process where I'd missed something. That was why I missed it. So over time, you learn what that is, and you correct it. The other thing that I got trained on way back was the 4 objections to someone buying or not buying a car, and those have been the same for a long time. But most salespeople that I trained and that when I was learning it didn't even know what those were. They had no idea. They're like, "Oh
That's a
yeah, you
problem.
got to talk to your wife. Okay, see you next week." Like what? So, part of it is just not just like in football or soccer or rugby, pick your sport. If you don't know the basics, if you don't know how to do that and you don't practice it when you're dealing with a customer, it's not really fair for that dealer or that manager to put you in front of a customer when you don't know how to handle it. Like you're winging it. It's not going to go well. So the people that learn that quickly get there, in my opinion, that have the grit. But also the people that are 20 and 30 car month guys or gals, they got there because they were willing to listen and then execute. And if you're not executing, okay, well, we saw last month you talked to these 50 people or whatever that number was. You sold 8 to 10. How do you sell 12 to 15? Well, there's the reason that you're not selling more is in those people you didn't sell. So let's figure out what you did wrong and let's not do that again, and you'll eventually get that number. But if you're not willing to adjust behavior, you're never going to get that number because you're just
Right.
going to keep making the same mistakes. And that's true in service as well. I mean, someone, oh, they don't want to buy this. It's an objection. You should know how to handle every objection like this. You shouldn't even have to think. It should be robotic. It's like a script. It's the same thing. And I think part of the challenge in some cases is just the manager isn't taking it upon themselves to be that coach to say, okay, let's drill these 4 or 5 things. Like, what was the objection you had yesterday you couldn't handle? What was that? Let's go over that, right? What was the objection that you handled well yesterday? This one. Okay, let's talk about that. And a lot of
That
it is just doing that, right? On a
that
regular
is the
basis.
that is the biggest failure in the automobile industry is that they don't take the training and they don't pass it down and they don't continue. And that's where what we're witnessing today, I
Hmm.
mean, this has been going on for a long time. especially in the service drive and especially in a lot of the people you walk in the dealerships and they don't have a clue. But now it just seems that if they don't embrace and tighten up, sell to the Medimart or the Walmart because everybody's not there. They want it everywhere. They want information online, and then they want to come in and they want to have a process that they can move through as quickly as possible. And if you don't have people on your showroom floor that can walk through that process seamlessly, easy, you're done. It's like going into a restaurant. If you don't have good wait staff, waitresses and waiters and getting that food out and coordinating it, who's going back there? It's just not. And it's service, 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 service. It's online, online, online. You know, as much as everyone wants to sit around and say it, we're all talking. We all know that it's all hands on deck now. And if you're not acting like it's all hands on deck now, and you want to enjoy your summer and go hang out on the beach and wait for this to end, and maybe in September things will be different, whew, you got another thing coming because it ain't getting you. You gotta just like there's no trophies in this. And why don't we let Abdul? He's been I think sitting very
Was that
patiently.
Abdul, you have a
Yeah,
thought, or Russell, you have a thought? Go ahead, Abdul.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, bro.
Well, I was listening because dealership on my team, we wanted to make sure you always wanted to have a rabbit or two because I had a team of seven when I became a closer in 95, 96, And then, you always give them the break on washing the floor. When you did training, you said 7 days a week. We would
7
do
days a week,
Monday through
twice a day,
Friday.
every
Yeah,
day.
we would do Monday because I started with Honda and nobody trained me. They just threw me a worksheet and said, "Here's your four square. Go
Yeah,
deal with it." I ended up just selling 22 cars my first month, 91, and
yeah,
February of 91. But the
yeah,
great thing you said, Ian, about training, the only day was that we called it here in LA showtime, Saturday and Sunday. So
yeah.
we didn't bother them. But I made sure as a team leader that I feed them so they don't go out and cost themselves a $500 voucher. So I prepared them food, purchased them food for lunch, and kept it with the receptionist. But the best way to move up the 8 to 10 guy is just you said with forecasts. You need to touch 100 apps and 85% you test drive and make sure you 50% put it on paper. And I will make sure I do my end to close 35 to 40%. And that's how we broke it down to on weekly basis to
Hmm.
get them to the point of moving them up from 8 to 10. And the great thing that we had was that if you do 2 months, if you miss 1 month, 10 minimum, the second month you had to do 15. And if you miss 15, you were out of there. So that's how we made sure that nobody on the team got under 10 to 12 2 months in a row.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great plan, and they had good, and that's exactly how you do it, and you did it. So I bet you would do well when you took the test about grit.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
love to, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I
I mean,
mean
definitely check out that test. I'm telling you,
I like that because
it's
it's
good.
true, and it's a lot. Most of the self starters and the people, unfortunately, you're going to find that most people had a terrible start somewhere before, and they had to figure it out, and they figured it out, and then they found it and they cruised, and
Hmm.
so I like, but grit is definitely something that if you don't have in the
You
auto
don't have
industry.
it. And one of the other things I may add is always about coaching and rewarding the top performer. Like if you were morning shift and you're there at 8:30, and I was always had the 15-minute rule because I was always be there at the dealership at 8 o'clock, and I'll be standing by the time clock at 8:15, and God help whoever was late 1 minute, you know. And the thing was, whoever was the top producer would be watching the lot and not be training in the morning because who would like to be in training in the morning when they're producing? But like you said, the high maintenance guys was worth it as long as they didn't deviate too much, way too
Yeah.
much of the course.
Yeah. If you didn't show up for the training in the morning for the morning shift, you didn't
Yeah,
get on the floor
then
at all, man.
yeah,
Like you did,
yeah,
Yeah.
you
yeah,
might as well go home.
yeah. You send them
So,
home, and when you
yeah.
send them home one time, they will not do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Russell, what do you think? Oh, I got
Well,
a comment from Eddie. Customers spend 70 days on average online looking at cars before they buy. salespeople need to know their product. I agree.
Would that be Ian? Would that be Eddie in service, or is it a different Eddie? Because I only know an Eddie in
Eddie
service.
Campbell. I don't know.
Eddie in service. Hello, Eddie Campbell.
That's your boy.
Hey, we had a conversation this morning. This guy is a phenomenal GM at Forest Lane CDJR in the Dallas area. He's just a rock star, particularly, I mean, as a GM. But man, I tell you what, their service department, I don't think there's anybody that promotes and has the expertise at tires than Forest Lane CDJR. And did you know that 33% of the consumers out there don't even know that dealerships sell tires? Anyway, I digress. So listen, back in the day, here's what I had. It's all science. There's no magic. There's no coincidence. There's no luck. You reap what you sow. It's about action, excitement, enthusiasm. So now, back in the day, I had a Rolodex, and I would make 10 phone calls a day, and I would send 10 letters out. There was no such thing as email. Okay. There was no email. I would send 10 handwritten letters out. I would plant my rear end on I popped the bed down on a truck, and I popped my rear end there until I had at least 2 opportunities to share the road to the sale and exercise and practice my road to the sale. I would also 3 times a week show up 7:15 to 7:30, and I'd work the service drive, learn some really valuable stuff out there. And then I would make sure and walk the lot to check inventory, see what came in, etc. Because let me tell you what, if you went to the desk, this is when I worked for Van Top, when you went to the desk and you asked a question like that, you would never go to the desk and ask a question like that again. They wouldn't let you do that. Not only that, but when you came to the desk to work a deal, you had to have an offer. The customer had to be committed to something. Because I don't care what it was. We're talking wedding rings, whatever it was, there needed to be some level of commitment. Okay. And if you let them leave without touching the desk, you got a warning the first time. The second time, you packed your box and you left, because everybody in Dallas wanted to work at Toda Richardson back in the late 80s and early 90s. I'm just telling you, it was the place to be. I learned a lot about the road to the sale and the process. And when if you shortcut it, it costs you gross, repeat, referral, CSI, SSI every single time. But one of the most valuable things I learned, and it took me a long time to learn it, was I didn't work the customer and the desk like most salespeople did, and I did for years. Okay. But when I stopped working the desk and stopped working the customer and genuinely focused on the consumer, building a relationship and finding out what their needs, wants, and desires were, they told me everything I needed to sell them without focusing on how I can manipulate things to maximize my gross, right? That I made more money that way than I did trying to manipulate everything.
I found the best way when I sold cars, when I got really, really good at it at the end, was, to me, it was all, I wasn't selling cars anymore. I was selling on need and on payment alone. I wasn't selling on anything else. There was no discounting going on. I sold options. That's what I sold at the end of the day. And the other thing that I did that I think a lot of the other people that I work with didn't do, and I also manage an internet department, but was I stuck with that customer until I found a solution. I just stuck to it. So it was like, they came in here for a car. I'm going to make sure they get the car they want at a payment that works. And that was it. So to me, it was, I think in a lot of cases, what was my recipe for success was not giving up too early, or not letting them come up with an excuse.
Absolutely.
Not, to your point, getting management involved.
Absolutely.
Management was always involved.
But
I worked at a Travers store, and they were involved from the beginning. So,
but where Russell worked in Van Tile, that was the 80s, right?
That part was the 90s. In the 80s, right.
Okay, but Van Tile was always a recognized market leader dealer group. And that's why it was acquired by Berkshire Hathaway.
The most profitable privately held automotive group in the world.
And so so what they were doing, they got it.
Yep.
Their culture was on the money,
Right.
and it stayed there because they were doing, and it's just amazing. And they were just a service-oriented
Yep.
business.
They
And
really were.
he was an insurance guy, and he just got, I mean, he built his own F&I products, but they honed the system.
Yep.
And the system, and I remember in the 90s, there were some stores where you had studs and they had to come to the desk with a commitment. And it
Yep.
was like, just go be nice, talk to them,
Yep.
show them some cars, do everything, win
Right.
them over,
Yep.
kiss the babies, and then bring a commitment.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and we used to have watches on tables. It was like, I don't have a
Yep.
checkbook and I don't
Yep.
have this. And it was like, oh, give me the watch.
Oh,
And it
hold
was
on. I'll
like,
tell you what we didn't do. We didn't throw the keys on the roof when they
yeah,
wanted
no,
to
no,
leave.
no, no,
Okay.
no.
No,
But
and
you,
then
but they were there to buy a car,
Yeah,
and
they
they
were.
knew that they were gonna, and they loved it, and it was a haggle, and they were enjoying it, and then that you made it fun. So
This
I
is
mean,
this is for you, Eddie in service. This is a preemptive commercial break. Toasting to Eddie in service, Eddie Campbell, general manager
way to go,
extraordinaire.
Eddie.
He said,
Eddie.
yes, it's Eddie in service.
Yeah,
To Eddie,
Eddie.
who I
And we got
believe is
another
one of
comment
Larry's clients too. So
from
hi,
Mike
Eddie.
Moran. The trading process of a negotiable product has two major parts: building value and closing. Not all salespeople are good at both. I
Thanks,
thought
Mike
that was
Moran.
interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, video.
Michael Moran.
Michael Moran, thank you, video gets a little shout out.
Yeah, buddy. Hey, Russell, I got a question for you. How important was it back in the 80s and 90s for you to sit down with a customer and get a list of who they knew as a referral basis? I mean, I was always told that inside a rapport, anything is possible. And when you have that rapport, you can sit down with them and map out, okay, who's in your family, who's your friends, and who do you work with, and
I
then
didn't.
break that down.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that till you just mentioned it. So I worked for a guy. My first gig selling was 1985 for Tyson Popel, Tyson Buick in Fort Worth, Texas. And part of what we would do after that rapport was built and went through that process, I can't remember how many it was. I'm going to say five names and numbers of family and or people of referral, that might also be interested in having an experience like this. There's some, yeah, it was an amazing process.
I mean, that still holds true today.
Yes, it
People
does.
buy from people they like, know, and trust. And
That's right in line with what Mike Larkin does today, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, pretty much.
And also the technology doesn't really change anything. It's still the same conversation.
Right.
It's just that
Still
some
the
of that
same
may be remote.
conversation. But what you're doing is you're connecting the dots that as opposed to just throwing a big bait into a big pond of water. Now you're finding leads and real people, and that's the difference.
But
Well,
also,
no,
I think
the-
when you look at letters, I mean, I used to send postcards because they'd have to open them. But but I would say postcards probably still work today because how many people get postcards in the mail today? Probably nobody.
That's a great idea.
yeah, birthday cards. I was
Yeah.
selling birthday cards. And to your referral thing was I would sit down and say, who are the 5 people that you'll show your vehicle first to? And
Well,
they'll say,
Mike Moran is
Yeah.
watching, and he has this thing about, would you rather, invest in the mailbox kind of idea or go digital? Because if there's a storm, and he ran into this one of his clients, there's a storm, that whole campaign is gone, and you don't get you don't get that money back. When it's digital, you can go always with a new campaign and send it out. So there's method to his madness.
Well, I don't think you shouldn't do both. I'm just saying that when I did postcards, I would do them just randomly and I'd try to make them funny. But the reason I did postcards is people didn't have to open it. They couldn't resist flipping it over.
Yeah.
Because it's a postcard.
And you didn't have to lick that envelope, right, Ian?
There's no envelope. It's just, rock and roll. But the other one that I heard years ago, and I'm sure it's still true, is birthday cards not on the person's birthday. Because then they call you and go, what are you, dumbass? Like, what? That's not my birthday. Like, what are you doing? And they just like randomly send out birthday cards. And it could be email, it could be a text message, it could be video, it could be all those.
At least put belated.
Yeah. But we're almost out of time, man. This blew by fast. And we got
this was amazing. But did we solve any of the world's problems tonight?
Do we
Religious,
ever? Do we ever?
I think as a summary, it's become gritty if you're not. Practice a lot.
I think
put in the work, man.
Ian,
that's pretty much it.
Ian said it. I liked it. His grit. Nothing's easy. And if you think it's easy, you're in the wrong game. And
okay,
if you want easy, go work for the government.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to say something in closer. Abdul, go ahead.
No, it said working for government. I said not anymore. The way they're chopping federal workers.
Used to be.
My mentor taught me a long time ago when I was ready. I had somebody like a Brian Benstock appear in my life. I was 39 years old when that happened. Before that, it was a downward trajectory in every way, form, or fashion. But what I learned was, because I was always very driven, but I had poor decision-making abilities back then, but I was getting better. So I met this gentleman. Here's the long and short of it. He said, Russell, are you willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do so you can have and become the things that most people will never have and never become? And what he meant by that was, we don't have time for it now. So if you show up next week, you might hear the end of it. If Ian remembers, there's somebody ask if you're online. But that is, you're a sum total right now, this minute, of everything you've ever seen, heard, read, or done. And if you want to affect any kind of change, it starts today, not tomorrow. Definition of insanity, we all know what that is. I don't even need to tell you what it is. The greatest predictor of future behavior is previous behavior, except for three things: what you read, what you listen to, and who you associate with. New input will dictate new output. And if you don't input that kind of stuff, you're left to everything that you already know, because there's nothing else unless you input new. That's all I got.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Here.
Right on.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
That
for
was a
joining.
wonderful evening.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. This was a great.
It really was. Rhonda, Ian, Mike, Gary, Abdul, Russell, and Eddie.
Yeah.
Eddie Campbell, Eddie in service. You're awesome, brother. Talk to you soon.
Have a great.
And
Good night,
if you're looking for
everyone.
that coaching tool, just reach out. I'll be happy to provide it.
Thank you.
you.
Thank